The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dusty road in rural Nebraska, painting the cornfields in shades of amber and gold. The air hung heavy with the scent of earth and approaching autumn, a reminder that winter wasn't far behind. Along County Road 47, a lone figure trudged forward, her steps uneven and labored. Sarah Mitchell was 26 years old, though the past 3 months had aged her beyond recognition. Her dark hair, once carefully styled, now hung in greasy strands around a face hollowed by hunger and exhaustion. She clutched a bundle wrapped in a faded blue blanket against her chest, her 6-month-old daughter, Emma, who hadn't stopped crying for the past hour. Sarah's feet ached in worn sneakers that had developed holes near the toes. Her jeans hung loose on her frame, testimony to the weight she'd lost since leaving Phoenix. The tank top she wore was stained and wrinkled, and the lightweight jacket she'd tied around her waist offered little promise against the evening chill already beginning to settle over the plains. Emma's cries grew more insistent, and Sarah felt her chest tighten with a familiar panic. The baby was hungry, had been hungry for too long. Sarah had nursed her an hour ago, but her own malnourishment meant her milk was barely enough. The last real meal she'd eaten had been 2 days ago, half a sandwich she'd found in a gas station trash can in the last town. "Shh, baby girl, please," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "Mama's trying. I promise I'm trying." She'd been walking since dawn, hoping to reach the next town before nightfall. Her phone had died 3 days ago, and she had no way to charge it. Not that it mattered. There was no one to call, no family who cared, no friends who could help. Just her and Emma against the world. The farmhouse appeared like a mirage in the distance. It sat back from the road, accessible by a long gravel driveway lined with mature oak trees. The house itself was modest, a 2-story white structure with a wraparound porch and black shutters. Beside it stood a large red barn, and beyond that, fields of corn stretched toward the horizon. Sarah slowed her pace, weighing her options. She'd been turned away from 3 houses yesterday, each door closing with varying degrees of sympathy or suspicion. But Emma's cries were growing weaker now, which was somehow worse than when they'd been strong. Desperation made the decision for her. The gravel crunched under her feet as she made her way up the driveway. A black pickup truck sat parked near the barn, and she could hear the distant sound of machinery. Someone was working. The porch steps creaked as she climbed them, and she noticed details that spoke of a well-maintained home. Freshly painted railings, pots of mums in autumn colors, a welcome mat that looked recently swept. Sarah raised a trembling hand and knocked on the door. Nothing. She knocked again, louder this time. Emma let out a weak whimper against her chest. "Please," Sarah whispered to no one. "Please, let someone be kind." Footsteps sounded inside, heavy, deliberate. The door swung open to reveal a man in his early 60s with silver hair, weathered skin, and pale blue eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He wore work clothes covered in dust and grease, and he held a wrench in one hand. His expression was guarded but not unkind. "Can I help you?" His voice was deep and measured, with the slow cadence of someone who chose his words carefully. Sarah's rehearsed speech evaporated. Instead, tears spilled down her cheeks as she looked up at him. "I'm so sorry to bother you. My baby, she's hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days and I can't feed her properly. Please, if you have anything, even just some bread or—" Her voice broke. The man's eyes moved from Sarah's face to the bundle in her arms, where Emma's tiny face was visible, her skin too pale, her lips making weak, sucking motions even in sleep. Something shifted in the man's expression. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. "How long have you been walking?" "Since Phoenix," Sarah admitted. 3 months. 3 months. He repeated it like he was trying to comprehend the number. "With a baby." Sarah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The man studied her for a long moment, his blue eyes searching her face for something. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come inside." Sarah hesitated. "I don't want to impose. If you could just spare some food." "I said come inside." It wasn't harsh, just firm. "You can't feed that baby standing on my porch." She followed him into a home that smelled of coffee and wood polish. The interior was clean but lived in, with comfortable furniture that showed signs of age and use. Family photos lined the mantel above a stone fireplace, and through an archway she could see a kitchen with yellow walls and white cabinets. "Sit," the man said, gesturing to the dining table. "I'll heat up some soup." Sarah sank into a chair, her legs finally giving out. Emma stirred against her chest, and she rocked gently, murmuring soft reassurances. She watched as the man moved through his kitchen with practiced efficiency, pulling out a container from the refrigerator and pouring its contents into a pot on the stove. "I'm Robert," he said, not turning around. "Robert Hayes. Sarah Mitchell, and this is Emma. How old is she?" "6 months." Robert nodded, stirring the soup. "You running from someone?" The question was direct but not accusatory. Sarah appreciated that. "Yes, her father. He wasn't a good man. Did he hurt you?" Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her ribs, where the bruises had finally faded. "Yes." "Did you report it?" "Once. It made things worse." She paused. "I know how it sounds. Everyone always asks why we don't just leave. But when you have no money, no family, no place to go, leaving is the hardest thing in the world." Robert turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw understanding rather than judgment. "My daughter used to say the same thing." Used to. Past tense. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. He ladled soup into a bowl, chicken and rice, thick and steaming, and set it before her with a spoon. Then he poured a glass of milk and placed it beside the bowl. "Eat slowly. Your stomach's probably shrunk." Sarah wanted to devour it all at once, but she forced herself to take small bites. The warmth spread through her chest, and she felt tears streaming down her face again. She couldn't remember the last time someone had shown her this kind of basic kindness. Robert sat across from her, his hands clasped on the table. "There's a formula for babies in the cabinet. My daughter left it here before." He stopped, cleared his throat. "I'll get it." He returned with an unopened container of baby formula and a clean bottle. As Sarah ate, he prepared it with the confidence of someone who'd done it before, warming it to the right temperature and testing it on his wrist. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to Emma. Sarah hesitated only a moment before passing her daughter to him. Robert cradled Emma with the ease of experience, offering her the bottle. The baby latched on immediately, drinking with desperate urgency that made Sarah's heart ache. "Easy there, little one," Robert murmured. "Not so fast. You'll make yourself sick." They sat in silence for a while, the only sounds being Sarah's spoon against the bowl and Emma's contented suckling. Sarah finished the soup and most of the milk, her stomach feeling almost uncomfortably full after so long empty. "Where were you headed?" Robert asked finally. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "Anywhere. Somewhere safe. I have a cousin in Chicago, but I haven't spoken to her in 5 years. I don't even know if she'd help. Chicago's still a long way from here." "I know." Sarah looked down at her hands. "I know it's stupid, walking across the country with a baby. But I didn't have money for a bus ticket, and every shelter I tried was full or wouldn't take us both. I just kept thinking that if I kept moving, eventually we'd find somewhere." Robert was quiet for a moment, his attention seemingly focused on Emma, who was beginning to drift off, the bottle still in her mouth. But Sarah could see him thinking, weighing something in his mind. "My daughter's name was Rachel," he said suddenly. "She married a man named Derek when she was 22. Seemed nice enough at first. Charming, had a good job, said all the right things. We were happy for her." Sarah's stomach tightened, the past tense again. "About a year in, she started making excuses not to visit. Too busy. Derek had plans. She wasn't feeling well. When we did see her, she wore long sleeves even in summer. Makeup that didn't quite cover the bruises." His voice was steady, but his jaw clenched. "I asked her about it. She said she was fine, that I was imagining things." Derek was there, smiling, with his arm around her, making jokes about how clumsy she was. Emma had fallen asleep, and Robert carefully set the bottle aside, adjusting her in his arms. "She got pregnant," he continued. "We thought maybe that would change things. People say babies can bring couples together." He laughed bitterly. "But it just made it worse. She came here once when she was 6 months along, showed up at 3 in the morning with a black eye and a split lip, said she was leaving him, said she was done." Sarah's hands gripped the edge of the table. "My wife, Margaret, she made up the guest room. We told Rachel she could stay as long as she needed, that we'd help her get a lawyer, file for divorce, whatever it took." Robert's eyes were distant now, seeing something Sarah couldn't. But Derek showed up the next morning. He was crying, apologizing, said he'd get help, said he'd change. And Rachel, his voice cracked, Rachel believed him, or maybe she was just too scared not to. She left with him. "What happened?" Sarah whispered. 3 weeks later, she went into labor early. Complications. They got her to the hospital, but he stopped, took a breath. "She didn't make it. They saved the baby, a little girl. Margaret and I were at the hospital when she was born." "I'm so sorry," Sarah said, the words feeling inadequate. Derek told the doctors it was a medical tragedy, just one of those things. But the nurses, one of them pulled me aside, told me Rachel had come to the ER twice in the weeks before, both times with injuries, once with cracked ribs. The nurse had documented everything. Suggested Rachel talk to social services. Rachel refused, said it was her fault, that she'd been careless. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier. After the funeral, Derek kept the baby. His daughter, he said. His right. We tried to get custody, hired lawyers, but we had no proof of abuse. Just suspicions and a nurse's word against his. The judge gave him full custody. Robert's hands tightened around Emma. We got visitation rights, once a month, supervised. We'd drive down to Denver every month to spend 3 hours with our granddaughter in a room with a social worker watching. That must have been unbearable, Sarah said. Margaret couldn't handle it. The stress, the grief, it broke something in her. She had a stroke 2 years ago. Massive. The doctors said it was quick, that she didn't suffer. He looked up at Sarah, and his eyes were wet. I'd like to believe that. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked steadily, measuring out the silence. I'm sorry, Sarah said again. I can't imagine losing so much. Derek moved after Margaret died. Didn't tell us where. Cut off all contact. I tried to find them. Hired private investigators, searched social media, everything. But he'd covered his tracks, changed his number, deleted his accounts. I haven't seen my granddaughter in 18 months. She'd be almost 3 now. I don't even know if she's... He couldn't finish the sentence. Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. That's why you let me in. That's why I let you in, Robert confirmed. He looked down at Emma, still sleeping peacefully in his arms. When I saw you on my porch with this baby, hungry and desperate, I couldn't turn you away. I couldn't be the person who made things worse. Not again. They sat in the growing darkness, neither moving to turn on lights. Outside, the sun had nearly set, painting the sky in shades of purple and pink. You can stay here tonight, Robert said. There's a guest room upstairs. Clean sheets, warm bed. You can shower, eat a proper meal, get some rest. I can't impose, Sarah started. You're not imposing. I'm offering. He stood, still holding Emma, and walked to the window. But I need you to understand something. What you're doing, walking across the country with no plan, no resources, it's dangerous, not just for you, but for her. I know, Sarah whispered. I know it's not ideal. But what choice do I have? Robert turned to face her. You have choices. Maybe not good ones, but choices nonetheless. You could go to a women's shelter. They're all full. I've tried. Then a church, social services. There are organizations that help women in your situation, and they'll take Emma away from me. Sarah's voice rose. That's what they do. They see a homeless mother and decide she's unfit. I've seen it happen. Emma's all I have. I can't lose her. So you'd rather risk both of you dying on the side of the road? The words were harsh, but the tone wasn't. Robert was simply stating a fact. Sarah dropped her head into her hands. I don't know what to do. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being scared all the time. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. What if you stayed here? Sarah's head snapped up. What? Stay here, in this house, for as long as you need to get back on your feet. He gestured around the kitchen. This place is too big for one person anyway. Has been since Margaret died. The guest room is just sitting empty. And I could use help around the farm. I don't understand, Sarah said slowly. You don't know me. I could be anyone. A drug addict, a criminal. Are you? No, but then I'm offering you a place to stay. Robert sat back down at the table, carefully cradling Emma. Look, I'm not saying it's permanent. I'm not saying there aren't conditions, but winter's coming, and you won't survive out there with a baby. Not in Nebraska winters. Sarah's mind raced. It felt too good to be true, the kind of offer that had strings attached or hidden dangers. Why would you do this? You don't owe me anything. No, Robert agreed. I don't, but maybe I owe it to Rachel. To Margaret, to every woman who needed help and didn't get it. He looked down at Emma. And maybe I owe it to my granddaughter, wherever she is. Maybe if someone shows her kindness when she needs it, someone will show you kindness now. I don't have money to pay rent, Sarah said. I don't have anything. I said you could help around the farm. I'm getting older, and this place is a lot to manage alone. You could help with cooking, cleaning, small repairs. And when you're ready, we can look into getting you some proper work in town. There's always positions at the diner or the grocery store. It sounded too perfect. Sarah had learned the hard way that perfect offers usually had catches. What about Emma? What about her? Will you expect me to leave her alone? Pay you back in other ways? The question made her sick to ask, but she had to know. Robert's expression hardened, but not with anger, with understanding. No, absolutely not. You and Emma get the guest room. Door has a lock on it. You can use it if it makes you feel safer. I'll sleep in my room. The only thing I expect from you is honest work and respect for this house. How do I know I can trust you? You don't, Robert said simply. Same as I don't know I can trust you. But I'm willing to take the chance if you are. One night. Stay one night. See how it feels. If you want to leave in the morning, I'll drive you to wherever you want to go. But at least give yourself and Emma a chance to rest. Sarah wanted to accept immediately, but caution held her back. 3 months on the road had taught her that kindness often came with a price. Can I think about it? Of course. But while you're thinking, Robert stood and reached into his pocket, pulling out a set of keys. He placed them on the table between them. These are the keys to the house. Front door, back door, guest room. You hold on to them tonight. That way you know you can lock yourself in if you need to. You have control. Sarah stared at the keys, like they were a foreign object. You're giving me the keys to your house? I'm giving you the choice to feel safe, Robert corrected. Big difference. Slowly, Sarah reached out and picked up the keys. They were warm from being in his pocket, solid and real in her palm. I don't know what to say. Say you'll stay for one night. That's all I'm asking. Before you hear the rest of Sarah's story, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your country or city in the comments below. We love connecting with our viewers around the globe. And if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share powerful stories like this one every week, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Your support means everything to us. Now, back to Sarah's decision. Sarah looked down at Emma, still sleeping peacefully in Robert's arms. Her daughter's face was relaxed, no longer pinched with hunger. Her tiny chest rose and fell with steady breaths. When was the last time Emma had looked so peaceful? Okay, Sarah whispered. One night. Robert smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Good. Let me show you the guest room, and then I'll make us some dinner. Real dinner. The guest room was on the second floor, painted a soft lavender color. The bed was a full size with a thick comforter in cream and purple. There was a dresser, a nightstand with a lamp, and a rocking chair by the window. The attached bathroom had clean towels folded on the counter. Rachel picked out the colors, Robert said from the doorway. She always said lavender was calming. He cleared his throat. There's shampoo and soap in the shower. Some of Margaret's clothes are still in the dresser. She was about your size. You're welcome to anything that fits. Thank you, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. I'll watch Emma while you shower. Take your time. Sarah wanted to protest, to say she couldn't leave her daughter with a stranger, but exhaustion won out. She handed Emma to Robert, took the keys from her pocket, and after he left, she locked the door. The shower was the most luxurious experience of her life. She stood under the hot water until it started to run cold, washing away 3 months of dirt and fear. She shampooed her hair 3 times, scrubbed her skin until it was pink. When she finally stepped out, she felt almost human again. In the dresser, she found jeans that fit almost perfectly and a soft flannel shirt. There were socks, blessed, clean socks, and even unopened packages of underwear. She dressed slowly, marveling at the feel of clean clothes against clean skin. When she came downstairs, she found Robert in the living room with Emma. The baby was awake, lying on a blanket on the floor, and Robert was showing her a stuffed rabbit, making it bounce and dance. Emma was actually smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. She likes Mr. Hoppy, Robert said, not looking up. My granddaughter loved this rabbit. Sarah sat on the couch, watching this stranger play with her daughter with such gentle care. Robert, can I ask you something? Sure. Why do you still have all this? The formula, the toys, the baby stuff? Robert was quiet for a moment. Hope, I guess. Hope that one day I'd find my granddaughter. Or maybe, he paused, maybe I just couldn't let go. This is all I have left of them. Rachel and Margaret and the baby. These rooms, these things, they're memories. I'm sorry we're intruding on that. You're not intruding. You're giving these things purpose again. He looked up at her. That room was empty. Now it has life in it. That's not a bad thing. They ate dinner together. Pot roast with potatoes and carrots that Robert had slow-cooked that afternoon. Sarah ate until she was uncomfortably full, unable to stop herself. She hadn't eaten this well in longer than she could remember. As they cleaned up, Sarah found herself relaxing slightly. Robert wasn't hovering or making inappropriate comments. He was just there, steady and calm, moving through his house with quiet competence. Can I ask what happened to Emma's father? Robert said as he dried dishes. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Sarah was silent for a moment. His name was Kyle. We met at a party when I was 23. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. We moved in together after 3 months. Fast, Robert observed. Too fast, Sarah agreed. But I was young and stupid and in love, or what I thought was love. She scrubbed at a pot, her movements angry. The first time he hit me was 6 months in, slapped me across the face during an argument. Then he cried and apologized and swore he'd never do it again. But he did. He did. Again and again. And every time I believed him when he said it would stop. Or I told myself it was my fault, that I'd provoked him. That's what he said, you know, that I made him do it. Robert's jaw tightened. That's what they all say. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought maybe it would change things. Like your daughter did. Sarah laughed bitterly, but it made it worse. He said the baby was probably not even his. that I'd been cheating. He'd push me, shove me against walls. She stopped, her voice breaking. Once he kicked me in the stomach. I was 5 months pregnant. I thought I'd lost her. Jesus, Robert breathed. I went to the hospital, told them I'd fallen. They didn't believe me, but I stuck to the story. Emma was okay, thank God. But that's when I knew I had to leave. I started hiding money, a few dollars here and there from grocery shopping. It took me 2 months to save up $200. That's what you left with? $200? Sarah nodded. I waited until Kyle passed out drunk one night, packed a bag, and left. Took a bus as far as the money would take me, which was to Albuquerque. After that, I started walking. Why didn't you go to a shelter? I tried. The first one I went to was full. The second one had a wait list. The third one, she paused. The third one wanted to separate us, said they didn't have facilities for mothers with infants. They wanted to put Emma in foster care temporarily until I could get stable. Her voice was bitter. I couldn't do it. I couldn't lose her, so you walked. So I walked. Sarah set down the pot she'd been scrubbing. I know it sounds crazy. I know I put Emma at risk, but what else could I do? Go back to Kyle? Wait for him to kill me? Let them take my daughter away? You did what you thought you had to do, Robert said. I'm not judging you for that, but you're here now. You have options now. For one night. For longer, if you want it. Sarah looked at him. This stranger who'd shown her more kindness in a few hours than she'd received in years. Why are you being so nice to me? Because someone needs to be. Robert hung up the dish towel. Because I know what it's like to watch someone you love suffer and feel powerless to help. Because I failed my daughter, and I can't fail you too. You didn't fail Rachel, Sarah said softly. She made her choices. Did she? Or did Derek manipulate her so thoroughly that she couldn't see a way out? Robert shook his head. I replay those 3 weeks she stayed with us over and over. What if I'd said something different? What if I'd called the police when Derek showed up? What if I'd physically prevented her from leaving? You can't live in what-ifs. I know, but that doesn't make them stop. He looked at her directly. I can't change what happened to Rachel, but I can help you, if you'll let me. Sarah felt something crack open in her chest, a wall she'd built to keep herself safe, crumbling under the weight of this man's genuine care. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me? Of trusting? Of letting my guard down? Of thinking things might be okay and then having it all fall apart? That's fair, Robert said. Trust takes time. But you don't have to decide everything tonight. Just stay, rest. Let yourself and Emma recover. Everything else, we can figure it out as we go. That night, Sarah lay in the guest room with Emma sleeping in a dresser drawer she'd lined with blankets, a makeshift bassinet. The door was locked, the keys on the nightstand within reach. She'd half expected to lie awake all night, alert for danger. But the bed was so soft, the room so warm, and her body so exhausted that she fell asleep within minutes. She woke once in the night to Emma fussing. As she fumbled in the dark for the formula Robert had left on the nightstand, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Then they stopped outside her door. You okay in there? Robert's voice was quiet, careful not to startle her. Yes, Sarah called back. Just feeding her. Okay, I'm here if you need anything. The footsteps retreated. Sarah fed Emma in the rocking chair, looking out at the dark fields stretching endlessly under a star-filled sky. For the first time in months, she felt something like peace. When morning came, Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee wafting up from downstairs. She changed Emma's diaper. She'd found a pack of them in the bathroom, still sealed, and made her way down to the kitchen. Robert was at the stove making pancakes. Morning. How'd you sleep? Better than I have in months, Sarah admitted. Thank you. Hungry? Starving. They ate breakfast together, a meal that felt surreal in its normalcy. Just two people sharing pancakes and coffee, while a baby gurgled happily in a bouncy seat Robert had retrieved from somewhere. So, Robert said, setting down his fork. You staying? Sarah had thought about this all morning. The smart thing would be to leave, to not get comfortable, to keep moving. But she was so tired of being smart, of being cautious, of barely surviving. What would it look like? She asked. If I stayed, well, you'd keep the guest room. I'd expect you to help around the house. Cooking, cleaning, that sort of thing. Nothing too strenuous. Especially while Emma's so young. When you're ready, we can look into getting you some work in town. Start building up some savings. Eventually, you'd need to deal with the legal stuff. Filing for custody, getting a restraining order against Kyle, maybe filing for divorce if you were married. We weren't married. That makes some things easier. I know a good lawyer in town, Joan Matthews. She does pro bono work for women in situations like yours. I can introduce you when you're ready. Sarah stirred her coffee, thinking, what about Emma? Daycare. I can't leave her alone all day. There's a playpen in the attic. You can bring her with you while you work around the house. And when you do get a job in town, we'll figure something out. Maybe part-time at first. Something where I can watch her here. You'd do that. Robert looked at her steadily. Sarah, I'm 73 years old. I spent 2 years watching my